Hello, hello, hello. Peace be still, everyone. This is Tosha, and you're tuned in to the Supernova Tosha Show podcast, the show that addresses social issues and how it affects our community. And today we're going to be talking about take that, take that, take that. Diddy! Who else? Why not? Everybody else is talking about Diddy, so let's talk about Diddy. Oh my goodness. Um, let's take a breath first. Let's breathe and let's take a breath. What in the Diddy is, what is all of this that's happening? I mean, we all knew that, Hollywood, that's why we call it Hollywood. People in Hollywood, they're odd, they're weird, they're eccentric, they do weird things. They've been, dibbling and dabbling and all sorts of things. But now, with all this revelation, we are hearing so much stuff that I know I didn't want to know, but now I know, right? So, well. The tea regarding Sean Combs, Sean Love, Puffy, Diddy, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy the Diddler. It is piping hot, and I'm here trying not to spill the tea on this microphone. We're talking about the Diddy trials today, and can you believe the things that have been happening? And these are things that happen in real life, in their lives. And so the music mogul has been living a life of madness, and that's what I call it. It's just depravity, madness. Just grab your snacks and clutch your pearls because we're going to get into it. We're going to get into it. Okay, so Sean Diddy Combs is currently on trial in a Manhattan federal court, facing multiple serious charges stemming from allegations of operating a criminal enterprise over nearly 2 decades. The charges include racketeering, so he's facing a RICO charge, sex trafficking, transportation for purpose of prostitution, and these are charges that can carry a lifetime of imprisonment. Oh my gosh. So the first witness, that was there was Cassandra Ventura, or Cassie. So many people, including myself, they are asking, why isn't she criminally charged, right? Okay, so I know for me, the reason why I asked why Cassie isn't criminally charged is because she admitted to doing a lot of this prostitution. She admitted that she went online to Craigslist and she found the prostitutes on Craigslist and she called the prostitutes on Craigslist and she made the arrangements and made the flight arrangements and the plans and the hotel reservations, and she's not being charged. So the reason why she's not being charged is because she is considered a victim. So according to her civil lawsuit and law enforcement statements, Cassie was coerced, abused, and trafficked by Diddy over the course of their relationship. Therefore, she is not held responsible for acts committed under duress or manipulation, especially if she's groomed, or if there's a difference in power in the relationship. So basically he has, more power, more influence than she does. So therefore she is under duress when she did all these things. And, as everybody says, oh, why didn't she just leave? Because apparently if she left, I don't know what would have happened, because she finally left and remarried and she's fine, right? So I'm not sure what would have happened if she just left. They're saying, oh, well, she left and dated Kid Cudi. She never left Diddy to date Kid Cudi. She was still with him while she was dating Kid Cudi. So when Diddy confronted Kid Cudi and allegedly blew up his car, I mean, if your girl's cheating on you, girl's cheating on you. What are you gonna do, right? Just like when, ladies, if your guy is with you, but then you find out he's got another girl, you're gonna go over there and go, I thought we were friends. I thought we were homies. I thought we were buddies. Girl code, what's going on? And I don't know, you might key her car. that's the equivalent, because from what's happening, it doesn't seem as though Cassie and Diddy broke up. In fact, there was something in the courts that said that she had finished a freak off and then that same time went to go see Kid Cudi. And so that tells me the type of person who he is as well. Okay. So in addition, if she has an NDA, as long as she's subpoenaed, that a subpoena can compel a witness to testify. And also, another question I wanted to know, how is she able to testify against him when $20 million? Well, apparently the $20 million that she received from the civil lawsuit, that's because it's two different lawsuits. That was a civil lawsuit that was settled, that's over with. And now this is the criminal lawsuit. So because it's the criminal lawsuit, it's two different things. So she's not there. Nothing's going to happen to her. All right. So I want to show you a video. So the video is a breakdown from a legal analyst, and kind of just breaks down and tells us what he's being charged with, what's been happening so far in the court, because everybody's like, all we see is that he's freaky, he's nasty, and so is she. She's, she willingly participated. And I also do believe that she willingly participated, because you know what? She made the call to Craigslist. I highly doubt that at that moment she was high off drugs. I do believe, and she has admitted on the stand, that before participating, during, and even after, she was intoxicated. She, was under the influence. But prior to that, but she then high 24/7, even to make a phone call, to drive to Burger King to get a burger? No, I mean, these are times where she was sober and she was making the arrangements. Now, during the acts, I do believe she had to do what she had to do to get through them. But anyway, this video will go ahead and just kind of break down to you, what's happening. So take a look.
After wrapping 4 days of testimony as the star witness against the former music mogul, was facing charges of racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Let's bring in prominent trial lawyer and legal analyst Michelle C. Thomas. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you. We learned a lot this week between Ventura's testimony and those text messages. Looking at how the case against Combs is playing out after week one, if you were his attorney, how would you be feeling about how it went thus far?
I'd be a little nervous, I have to tell you, because the prosecution, they really brought out this emotional, impactful testimony from Cassie Ventura. They laid the foundation for what we would consider a pattern of coercive control, and really highlighted the power dynamics and imbalance between Diddy and Cassie Ventura. And so I think the domestic violence, seeing that certainly was disturbing. And I think that it's concerning that there was really no explanation for Diddy's behavior. There were drugs and alcohol involved, but that's not an excuse for behaving that way. And so the violence and the manner that Diddy was portrayed, I think, was quite concerning for the defense.
And the prosecution, and you alluded to this, is painting Combs as a monster. And one of the text messages entered as evidence, Cassie says, when you get effed up the wrong way, you always want to show me that you have the power and you knock me around. I am not a rag doll. I am someone's child, end quote. As a defense attorney, how do you see this evidence affecting the jury?
Look, I mean, they all saw the video. We've all seen the video, and the video of Cassie Ventura being dragged by the elevator, kicked and stomped by Diddy did not lie. And so that is impactful for the jury when they think about, the defense's case. They're trying to portray her as consensual. They're trying to control the narrative and say that he's not some monster who was, controlling her, but that it was a consensual act. But then when you see that power dynamic, you see her as a victim of domestic violence. Did she really consent? Because domestic violence, it's complicated, and a lot of times the victims, they favor their abusers and they support their abusers, but at the same time, as she mentioned at the end of her testimony, she lost her agency and she lost herself. So I think that was very damaging to the defense's position that this was a consensual act.
Michelle, so the charges against Diddy, racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Right now, it's what we've seen so far is domestic abuse. It's violence, but that's not illegal. Could he face life in prison? Because we haven't seen any proof of sex trafficking just yet. Right now, it's abuse.
Yeah, but we have to remember this was just the first witness. And so what they've done is they've laid the foundation, the framework to portray Diddy as a monster. And so that when they bring in all these other witnesses that were possibly brought across state lines for the purpose of engaging in commercial sexual activity, which would then be illegal and support the charges against him, it makes it all the more believable and it makes the witnesses all the more credible. And so that's where I think Diddy has a problem, that they've already attacked his own character through this first witness, and therefore I think it would bolster the testimony of the subsequent witnesses to come from the prosecution.
I want to bring up the other witness that testified yesterday, Dawn Richard, who said she worked for Combs. She also took the stand Friday. She said she saw Combs attacking Ventura. How important is it to have testimony in a case like this as well?
Well, it's what we consider corroborating testimony. So it supports, again, and bolsters the credibility of Cassie Ventura's 4 days worth of testimony that the jury has heard so far. And so that adds to this concept and this framework of Diddy as a monster, as someone who controlled and pulled all the strings, and as someone who had the power and the ability to drag people across state lines to force them to engage in sexual acts against their will. And that's where you have this sex trafficking and racketeering charges come in to play.
And we saw this play out. We were all watching this. Ventura faced tough questioning this week under cross-examination from Combs' legal team. They're trying to portray Ventura as a willing participant. They showed a lot of texts alluding to that as well. When we see these text messages, as a defense attorney, how does that undermine Cassie's argument in court?
Yeah, so this is where I think the prosecution made a mistake. As a trial lawyer, you want to get ahead of what we call bad evidence. And so I think it would have been better for the prosecution to bring out these text messages where Cassie was sort of supporting Diddy and expressing love and romantic interest toward Diddy and supporting these freak-offs, and explain that away and explain that she was a victim of domestic violence at that time. She was suffering with extreme trauma. And therefore, even though she made these statements, that didn't reflect how she really felt. Subsequently, as she subsequently testified. So the defense certainly used that to attack her credibility, to undermine this concept that she was a victim, to try to portray her as a consensual adult who was supportive, and that this was nothing more than a toxic relationship and perhaps a bad relationship, but not a criminal one.
All right. So I think I love these analysis of what takes place in the court. A lot of people are saying that, the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp case, that they were televised, and why this one isn't televised. I think I would have been glued to the TV. I definitely would have been glued to the TV because some of the stuff that I'm hearing from other people, it's really unbelievable. It's grotesque. Anyway, so we're in 2025, and the timeline of events began in November of 2023 when Cassie filed a civil lawsuit, and that civil lawsuit, rape, sexual violence, coercion, and sexually explicit acts under the New York Adult Survivors Act. And just after one day, they reached a settlement of $20 million. So, after a day of her filing that lawsuit, there was a settlement for $20 million. And then in March of 2024, federal agents raided Combs' properties, the one in LA, the one in New York City, and also in Miami. And then in September 2024, Diddy's arrested in Manhattan, and then 7 months later, May 2025, which, that's when the federal trial commences. And I want to talk about his children. I want to touch on his children. So Sean Combs, let's see, there's Justin Combs, King Combs. He has a daughter. Her name is Chance Combs. Then he's got twins, Jesse and Delilah Combs. And then the last one, she's a baby. I think she's about 2 years old. And her name is Love Sean. I believe it's Love Sean Combs. But yeah, her name's Love Sean. I hear them calling her Love. He raised Albie Shore's son. His name is Quincy Brown. So Albie Shore's son, biological son, was raised by Sean, but he calls him his son. So those are his biological children, and then Quincy Brown, the son of singer Albie Shore. Uh, Although Quincy is not his biological child. So, in light of the current federal case, the disturbing allegations involving parties referred to as freak-off have some raised concerns about whether the children were present or aware of these activities, because people are saying that, it's really disgusting that his children have to be exposed to this. It is important to understand that while Diddy hosted many lavish parties and after parties, there are reports that his children were often present during these events, not necessarily involved, um, but they were nearby or in that environment, and this has sparked conversation about what they may have been exposed to or become aware over time. Now, as for the freak-offs, there's no direct evidence at this time linking other celebrities to those particular events. In fact, some celebrities have even joked publicly that they were never invited, perhaps indicating that these were private, highly controlled gatherings, likely involving only Diddy, Cassie, and paid participants or selected guests. And this is just my opinion. I really don't think, because I hear that Ray J, Brandy's brother, is pretty close to Sean Combs. And he was having a conversation with Amber Rose, and Amber was like, did you ever get invited to these? Because I never got invited to these, and I think I'm pretty cool. I think they were actually offended that they weren't asked to participate. But I thought that was a funny conversation about them being excluded from the freak offs. Ew. But hey, over the years, Diddy has been very public about his larger than life lifestyle, from intense partying to his open love of alcohol and luxury. There's even a resurfaced video where he discusses his own mother's sexual freedom and how she waited until he turned 18 before revealing more about her personal views and choices. And this candidness suggests that he may have also have had open relationships with his own children about sexuality and adult behavior. And that's, in my opinion, that's what I think happened. But given his public persona, it's reasonable to assume that his children are at least aware of their father's extravagant and alternative lifestyle, even if they haven't been exposed to the full extent of what is now being alleged. You guys have to realize that this man has 6 children, and he's never been married. Okay, so that's the first thing. Secondly, while he was with Kim, he's also with Cassie, and then Young Miami, and she's the latest one. But then there were also other women he was linked to simultaneously. The J Lo, and it just. I mean, what are you shielding them from? I think they know. Allegations involving explicit sexual encounters and drug use, referred to as freak-offs, are central to the federal case against Sean Diddy Combs, as they directly relate to the government's issues for sex trafficking, racketeering, conspiracy, and transportation with intent to engage in prostitution. And according to the prosecution, Combs is accused of coercing Cassie Ventura and others into participating into these encounters, which reportedly involved the use of drugs and at times male sex workers. And Ventura has testified that she was pressured to use narcotics and engage in sexual acts under Combs's direction, and that she felt unable to safely exit the relationship or the situation. Again, she's married. She has been married since, I think, 2019. So she exited, and she's now given birth to her 3rd child. So I don't know. Prosecutors may rely on video evidence allegedly showing Combs engaging in coercive acts that they argue constitutes sex trafficking. And this, alongside Ventura's testimony, could be used to establish a pattern of manipulation, abuse, and control, critical to proving that the racketeering and trafficking charges. Um, Thus far, I don't see anything racketeering, but one thing they're saying is that when the feds come for you, that means they have everything. They have everything that they need to nail you, nail you to actually under the cell. So, it's still early. It's a eight week trial, and this might be week 2 or week 3, week 2.5 of the trial. So obviously, there's going to be more to come out. I'm just glad that they're no longer talking about the freak offs because they were just disgusting. Combs has pleaded not guilty to all the charges. His legal team maintains that all sexual activity was consensual and contends that Ventura remained in the relationship of her own free will despite its acknowledged dysfunction. And I completely agree with that because there was never a point where they said that she broke up with him and then dated someone. It's basically she was with Ryan. I forgot Ryan's first name, but I think at the time, I don't know how old she was, but she was dating Ryan. He was in the music business, and then she cheated on Ryan. She cheated on Ryan with Diddy. So she never really broke up. And Ryan even recounts where people were like, "Oh, Diddy stole your girl. Diddy stole your girl." And so he was like, okay, so what am I going to do about it? So, I mean, she's just displaying actions of serial cheater. So now she's with Diddy, and she's now the fun girl, the side chick, because he's obviously with Kim. And Kim's not down for it. He may have posed those things like, "Hey, Kim, let's have a freak off," and Kim was like, I think not." And so he's like, "All right." So he finds himself a girl on the side, the fun girl, the party girl, and I think there was even a text exchange about her wanting to have a baby with him or something like that. I'm not. Don't quote me. I think so, but he's thinking, no, that's not going to happen because you're just like the fun girl. You're the jump off. You're the fun girl. So we're not doing any of that. And so that's why he just never got serious with her. And I think she was like, "Well, why?" And then Kid Cudi must have, not must have, but obviously he, let her know that, "Hey, I'd like to whatever with you," and she cheated on Diddy with Kid Cudi, and Diddy found out, and well, things didn't go too well. Nonetheless, the detailed accounts of these so-called freak-offs are a key component of the government's case as they're being presented as evidence of coercion, exploitation, and criminal intent, all of which lie in the heart of the prosecution's argument. Here's a more, let's see. Actually, I want to talk about people who are more in my age range. So if you're in your late 40s, if you're in your 50s or 60s, and you're East Coast, right? So if you grew up on East Coast music, rap music specifically, whole Bad Boy Entertainment, you kind of heard stuff about Diddy, right? So in the film American Gangster, Denzel Washington's character Frank Lucas famously walks up to a man named Tango, played by Idris Elba, and he shoots him in broad daylight on a busy Harlem street. The scene is chilling, direct, and of course it's ruthless. And so Tango had failed to deliver what was owed to Frank, and Frank, wasting no time, executes him right there on the spot in broad daylight. And this moment is one of the most memorable in the film, which is based on a real life story of a Harlem drug kingpin. His name is Frank Lucas. Interestingly, there have been rumors linking that real life event with that inspired American Gangster to Sean Diddy Combs' father, Melvin Combs. While nothing has been officially confirmed, it's been whispered for decades in hip hop circles that Diddy's father may have been associated, allegedly, with some of the figures involved in that era's underground world. So for those of us who came up of age during the 90s hip hop boom, especially if you were deeply immersed in East Coast rap, Biggie, Sean Puffy Combs, Sean Carter, James Z, and others, you likely remember the conversations and rumors surrounding Diddy's street credibility. So even before the wealth and the fame, people believed that Diddy had deeply connected to the streets and carried himself accordingly. So for many of us who lived through that time, some of the allegations against him today, they don't come as a total shock. What does surprise many of our generation, those now in their late 40s, 50s, or 60s, isn't the aggressive or controlling behavior. Unfortunately, that era was marked by violence and misogyny, and that, it was often glorified in the music itself. It really was, and in the behavior, the music videos. But what is shocking are the deeply disturbing details of now emerging about the so-called freak-offs. And so, while we've heard of orgies and swinging and unconventional sexual behavior, the allegations involving bodily fluids and oils and blood and ritualistic acts go so far beyond what was ever whispered in the streets or rhymed in the lyrics. And, those descriptions of, those descriptions, if proven true, reflect a level of depravity that's hard to process, even for those of us who have seen and heard a lot. So I want to show you another video. And this video, this is going to be where it starts to bring some pieces to the puzzle and talk about these, the RICO charges. All right, so go ahead and watch this video and, hopefully it'll shed some light. Here you go.
Today was the day when the drip, drip, drip of the Diddy trial evidence became all-out waterboarding. And wouldn't you know it, it came from a celebrity stylist who sashayed his way up onto the witness stand. Deontay Nash had the kind of joie de vivre and sass that literally had that courtroom hooked from the moment he showed up. Apart from being right out of central casting, Nash hammered nails into Diddy's coffin today, one after the other, by testifying about things that line up squarely with racketeering. If you think the trial so far has been all about domestic abuse and not about the charges that Diddy's actually facing, like sex trafficking and racketeering, this stylist, Deontay Nash, his tour on the witness stand might just change your mind. Look, it is no secret that Diddy was violent, abhorrent, disgusting. We all saw what he did to Cassie on video. He admitted to it himself, but he's not charged with assault. And Deontay Nash testified about things that went way beyond violence and went straight to the heart of the prosecution's case: force, fraud, coercion. He told the jury that he actually witnessed Sean Combs regularly beating and threatening his girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, and that he would threaten to release the sex tapes of her. That he would use those sex tapes to get her parents fired from their jobs. And that he, Diddy, as head of Bad Boy Records, would refuse to release her music if Cassie didn't do as he said all the time. If you're keeping score, that kind of behavior from a guy at the head of an enterprise could easily be seen as the jury as extortion, coercion, forced labor, all the elements, the racketeering charges that Diddy's fighting. Stylist also testified that on Cassie's 29th birthday, she confided in this stylist that she did not want to participate in Diddy's planned freak-off. After all, it was her birthday, not his. Maybe there were some freak offs that she enjoyed, and maybe there were some that she did not, but felt she had no choice. For the record, forcing your employee, using your enterprise and your power at the top to have illegal sex with prostitutes that have crossed state lines, that's called sex trafficking, friends. It's called forced labor. And that is what Diddy is charged with in this trial. But this trial has so many people asking the question, what exactly is RICO? Well, technically, RICO stands for Racketeer Influenced Corrupt Organization. And back in the 70s, the feds created it as a means to bring down the mob, like an umbrella charge that bunched all together a whole bunch of different crimes. And that is the same federal law that Diddy's facing now. My next two guests know this law maybe better than anyone and know how hard it is to beat a federal RICO case because they're both former mobsters jailed by the feds for RICO. Michael Francisi was a captain in New York's Colombo crime family. He served 8 years for racketeering and extortion. And Anthony Ruggiano Jr. is the son of a Gambino crime captain who was locked up 4 different times for robbery, gambling, and yes, RICO. Michael and Anthony, welcome to both of you. And Michael, I said Francisi, and I think it's Francis, so I will correct myself before we even get started. Thank you both so much for being here. I have so many questions for you. Let me start with this, and I'm going to open it up to the both of you, but Michael, I'm going to get you to start. For a lot of people, RICO is all about the mob. It's all about what you see on The Sopranos. It's those kinds of crimes. It's not the stuff that they see on tape where Diddy's beating his girlfriend up. But I know that you guys have had a chance to kind of look into this case. You've heard what I just said in the opening of this case. So do you think that this is RICO, or are you scratching your heads?
Well, first of all, you can say my name either way, Francis or Francisi, so you're correct. But I will say, the RICO statute was definitely created, I think back in 1970, a fellow by the name of DeBakey created it specifically to go after the mob. No question about that. It's certainly evolved over the years because the government obviously can use a law in any way they see fit. They've gone after Wall Street people with it and a lot of other people. So they'll use it outside of the mob. What's a little bit confusing here is normally there is a criminal enterprise that's involved, a group of people. I had 3 racketeering indictments, 2 federal and 1 state. And in each case, it was the Francis family, the Francis group as part of an enterprise. And I had a lot of co-defendants. I didn't hear the government's opening statement on this to see how they tied this into a racketeering statute, because as far as I know, it's only Diddy on trial, and he's on trial alone. So are they claiming that he is a one-man enterprise? That's what's kind of confusing to me, because the charges against him can certainly stand alone. I don't think they need to be part of a racketeering indictment, but again, I'd have to know what the opening statement was and how they put that theory together that this could be under the RICO statute.
So you know what? I'll throw this in here, and Anthony, you can jump in. From the way I see things, what the prosecutors have tried to determine was that here's Diddy at the top of Bad Boy Records and the enterprise that he's created, the big businesses that he's created. He's got employees that he has, he's paying as security. He's got employees like Cassie, who is supposed to be releasing music. He's got employees like assistants who he tells, you go and set up the freak offs and you go and get my drugs. And, you grab Cassie and bring her to this vacant building and threaten her with a lie detector test. So I think what they're trying to say is that he used his business and he used his corporate card from Bad Boy Enterprises and he used cash from the business plus assistants and employees to carry out a lot of the crimes that they're alleging one after the other, with these witnesses. So if I lay it out that way, Anthony, what do you think? Do you think this lines up with the RICO that you know?
I feel a lot like Michael. I'm struggling with it too because my RICOs also, there was co-defendants. I read his indictment. I started reading his indictment today. And his business is the enterprise, and the people that worked for him were part of the conspiracy. So maybe they're unindicted co-conspirators, and they got immunity because, like Michael said, on my indictment, it said the United States of America versus, and then there was 8 names, and we all conspired to commit crimes. Diddy's alone. Who did he conspire with? Did he conspire by himself? Did he extort people? Yes, he did. Did he kidnap people? He held them against his will? Yes, he did. He brought people across state lines, which is a federal offense. But to be a RICO just on him, I it's hard for me to understand how that happens.
Yeah, and I do think that, I mean, listen, we got weeks and weeks left of just the prosecutor's case, but already we've seen one of the assistants who said he got immunity. And my feeling is that his second in command, Christina Coram, either she's going to plead the fifth or she's going to have been offered immunity or use immunity for her testimony. I do think you're right. It's kind of confusing without the conspirators, but my feeling is that right now, to get the testimony against the guy at the top, they may be offering them immunity. But like I said, we still have to find that out. I got this question for you, Michael. I opened the show by saying that I felt sad by sitting through a lot of today's testimony because this stylist, he just went over instance after instance of just vicious beating and control that Diddy had allegedly over Cassie, things he saw firsthand. Things that he even tried to step in and stop by jumping on Diddy's back. Blood coming down Cassie's face during one of the beatings that Diddy allegedly turns around and says, "Look what you all made me do." And I wondered about a guy like that. Now that this is all coming out in the public, if Diddy's convicted, this is not the kind of behavior that I used to hear about with the mob. They beat up and killed guys, but they didn't beat up and kill girls all the time. Do you see a big difference here with the kind of behavior Diddy's accused of doing compared to the behavior of mobsters?
Oh, absolutely. Let me say this. I always take the position, someone's innocent until proven guilty. That's just my position all the time. However, we have seen certain things. I think everybody has seen the hotel video where he was obviously beating her up. And the testimony has been absolutely despicable. And nobody in my former life would ever approve of something like that. And I think Anthony will vouch for that. We didn't beat up women. We didn't do things like that. We were taught to respect women in a big way, especially our families. So, in our life, if you violated another made man's wife, daughter, sister, mother, you're in a lot of trouble. So we didn't stand for that in any way, shape, or form. And like I said, the acts that are being described here are disgusting, despicable. If somebody like that was in our former life, he wouldn't last, quite honestly. And again, I would love to hear, I believe that the defense is going to attack the RICO statute here. You said, possibly there are witnesses that have been given immunity. Not possibly, 100%. I mean, that's how government builds cases. They go after people, they get them to cooperate, and they give them immunity. So like Anthony said, there's probably several unindicted co-conspirators here that all decided, hey, we're not going to take the fall, we're going to cooperate. They're going to testify, and that's why they weren't indicted. So I would believe that what Anthony said, that, they're going to use the theory that you said, that the whole, Bad Boy Records was a criminal enterprise. He was at the top of it. He used these other people to implement his criminal schemes, and that's how they charged him with RICO. But these acts are just, the real question is, how did this go on for 20 years? 20 years this was going on. A guy as high profile as that, and I've said this before, and nobody gets charged for it. It's allowed to continue for 20 years. There's no question that people knew that this was going on. There were high profile people involved. How does something like this go on for 20 years? Anthony, in our former life, this wouldn't last a year. People would be down in.
Definitely.
Yeah, you know what, Anthony, I'm gonna get you to dovetail on that because I want to know if Diddy's convicted and he ends up spending the rest of his life in a federal prison, given what we know now, the filth of his behavior, the absolute filth of his behavior when it came to how he treats women. One woman, absolutely. The others, so far, it's just an accusation. How will he fare behind bars?
Well, I have two scenarios. If the BOP buries him in like a Marion or the Supermax in Colorado, he'll do a terrible bit. But if he goes to, my opinion, if he goes to a regular federal prison, he's going to be fine because the kids there, the people there, he has a lot of money. He's still, he's in the music business. Everybody wants to be a hip hop artist. He's going to do fine in prison. He's going to do a good bit. He's got a ton of money, and he's going to do fine in prison unless the BOP buries him in a supermax. That's the only way he's going to have issues. Other than that, I don't think he's going to have a problem with a certain group of people. Maybe mob guys might shun him. I'm sure people might throw, innuendos at him. He might have a fight or two, but overall, I think he's going to do fine in there because of who he is and all his money. Just like Madoff did fine in there and all these other criminals.
Tell me why you think he would have a tougher time at a supermax. What would be the difference, and what would that tougher time look like?
He'll be isolated. You get an hour a day. He'll be locked in a cell 23 hours a day. He'll have no rep. He'll have no contact to the outside world. He'll have nobody to talk to. He'll be just alone, isolated. And that's hard on a person to be isolated like that.
But you know what? Maybe if you got a target on your back because of the way you allegedly used women as punching bags for 20 years, maybe it would be better to be isolated than the alternative. Can't thank you both more for being so candid about your past and helping us to sort of understand what's at stake in this federal courtroom. I'd love to have you both back. Michael Franzese and Anthony Reggiano, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
All right. So we are back like we never left. Okay. So, again, if you came up in that, during that 90s hip hop boom and, you grew up with, the whole, Bad Boy Entertainment, also take note that a lot of his artists that were no longer signed to, Bad Boy, you notice how they all left on really bad terms. There was a time where he was not on good terms with anyone. Let's even go as far back as Shine. You remember rapper Shine from Belize? And it said that, Shine took the rap for that nightclub shooting. And Shine did 10 years. And Shine was like, yeah, he gave me, I don't even know how much he gave him. It was some ridiculous amount, like $50,000 when he came out. And Shine's like, I've seen him take Cassie on shopping sprees for like $50,000. So I did 10 years for you. So, Shine he went back to Belize. Now he's he's a politician. I think he's a senator in Belize. Good for him. And then 112, yeah, they don't have anything good to say. And there's one point where Look Him and Diddy, Puffy, they weren't on any good terms. Who else? Mary J. Blige. And then, of course, there's the rumors about everybody that he's been in business with have expired. Especially Heavy D. I think they were slated to open something together, or they had something together, or I don't know. But he was behind the demise of Heavy D. Kim Porter. Just the things that you hear about Puffy. This has been happening since the 90s, and none of it surprises me. I think there was something in the courts today about Jeffrey Epstein. I'm going to talk more about this, but I'm going to touch on that there was some kind of a business, some correlation between a company, because he had several companies, and there was money from Jeffrey Epstein that was invested in that company as well. And the reason why I brought that up is because I want to touch on that. Back in the day, you're young, you're in the 90s, and you see this young kid with the baggy pants, because Puffy started out as a dancer. He was actually a background dancer, and then he just kind of came up and He just had so much money and still has a lot of money. And so we always try to root for the underdog, but we didn't know that he was doing all of this. I mean, we suspected that, he did some shady things to come up, but to the level of depravity that he's done, and people who've been hurt and touched negatively, just to come up for money. I think this really, I'm not sure if the name mogul really fits anymore in my eyes. And try not to be judgy because we've all done things. And, judgment is not for me. As my dear friend would say, I'm not here to judge, I'm just passing through. So, I'm just passing through and I'm trying not to judge, but with everything that you're hearing, it's like, okay, all right, I'll do my best not to. But anyway, there will be more to come, as we sit through this gross, disgusting, vile, depraved federal case of Sean Puffy Combs. And so, to my loyal family, the Supernova Tosha Show podcast can be heard on these apps such as Spotify, Pandora, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio. The goal is to be on the 10 best podcast list to listen to. So please share, subscribe, and like to my YouTube channel and spread the word. I want to say that I'm very grateful for your time. I want to thank you for being so attentive. I appreciate your presence. Be careful, be safe, walk good, and peace be still.